Most retirees don't lose money all at once. They lose it slowly, quickly, through decisions that feel completely safe in the moment. That's what makes the problem so difficult to recognize. Because when most people imagine financial danger, they picture dramatic market crashes, headlines flashing red across television screens, panic on Wall Street, retirement accounts suddenly collapsing overnight. But historically, many retirement portfolios are damaged in a much quieter way. Not through one catastrophic event, through years of small emotional decisions that gradually weaken financial stability over time. And by the time many retirees notice what happened, reversing the damage becomes far more difficult. This is the hidden retirement problem almost nobody talks about honestly. After 60, investing changes emotionally, not mathematically. Emotionally, because money no longer represents future ambition, it represents safety, security, freedom, the ability to sleep peacefully at night. And that emotional shift changes behavior more than most people realize. A 35-year-old investor may see a market decline as temporary. A 68-year-old retiree often sees the exact same decline very differently. Suddenly, the question is no longer, how much can my investments grow? It becomes, what if I can't recover from this? That fear is deeply human, and historically, it has quietly shaped retirement outcomes for decades. This is where many intelligent investors begin making decisions that feel emotionally comforting in the short term, but financially damaging over the long term. And what makes this even more dangerous is that these decisions rarely look reckless. They usually look responsible. Keeping too much cash, selling investments during uncertainty, avoiding markets completely after a downturn, constantly changing strategies whenever headlines become frightening. The logic feels safe. Historically, the long-term consequences can become surprisingly expensive. To understand why, it helps to look at what happened during one of the most emotionally difficult financial periods in modern history. In 2008, millions of Americans watched retirement savings fall with terrifying speed. Entire portfolios dropped faster than many retirees believed possible. Financial institutions collapsed. News coverage became relentless. Every day seemed to bring another warning. And during periods like that, fear changes behavior faster than logic. Many retirees moved heavily into cash. Some sold investments entirely. Others stopped investing permanently after the crash. At the time, those decisions felt protective. And emotionally, they made complete sense. But this is the part many investors struggle to see clearly while fear is happening. Inflation never stops quietly working in the background. Money sitting still for too long slowly loses purchasing power. A retirement account that avoids volatility completely may also lose the ability to grow fast enough to support decades of future living expenses. Historically, this became especially painful during inflation periods like the 1970s. Prices climbed steadily. The cost of ordinary life changed faster than many retirement strategies were prepared for. Food became more expensive. Housing became more expensive. Healthcare became more expensive. And retirees relying too heavily on idle cash found themselves facing a different kind of financial pressure. Not sudden collapse, slow erosion. The danger was quieter, which made it harder to emotionally detect until years had already passed. This is one reason Jack Bogle spent decades repeating an idea that sounded almost boring compared to modern financial media. Simplicity matters. Patience matters. And emotional reactions often create more damage than market volatility itself. Bogle believed most investors dramatically overestimated their ability to successfully react to uncertainty, not because people lacked intelligence, because fear changes behavior, especially after retirement. And this is where many retirees accidentally fall into one of the most common traps in investing. They begin prioritizing emotional comfort over long-term financial balance. That distinction matters enormously, because emotionally safe decisions are not always financially safe decisions. Holding excessive amounts of cash can feel safe. Historically, over long periods of inflation, it quietly weakens purchasing power. Panic selling during market declines can feel responsible. Historically, many investors who sold during fear struggled emotionally to reinvest later. High-fee investment products can feel sophisticated. Over decades, many quietly consume enormous portions of long-term returns, and constant emotional reactions to financial headlines often create a cycle where investors repeatedly interrupt their own long-term progress. This is the quiet side of wealth loss. Not dramatic failure, gradual weakening, small emotional decisions repeated consistently over time. And modern financial media often makes this even harder. Every market movement becomes breaking news. Every downturn sounds catastrophic. Every correction feels historic, but historically, uncertainty has always existed. Markets rise, markets fall. Inflation changes economic behavior. Fear returns again and again in different forms. The details evolve. Human psychology changes far more slowly. That's why Bogle focused less on prediction and more on behavior. He believed successful long-term investing depended less on constantly reacting to events and more on building systems strong enough to survive uncertainty calmly, a diversified portfolio. Low-cost index funds, reasonable expectations, and enough emotional discipline to avoid making major decisions during moments of fear. Simple ideas. But simplicity is psychologically difficult during stressful periods. Especially when everyone around you appears frightened. This is where many retirees quietly separate themselves financially over time, not through brilliance, through consistencies. Some investors spend decades searching for the perfect investment. Historically, many successful retirees simply avoided emotionally destructive behavior long enough for time to work in their favor. That philosophy rarely sounds exciting. It rarely creates dramatic headlines. But over long periods of time, calm behavior is often proven more valuable than aggressive prediction. And perhaps the most important part of this conversation is understanding that financial peace has value too. Constant fear about money changes retirement itself. It affects sleep, relationships, mental clarity, daily life. Bogle believed investing should support life quietly in the background, not dominate it emotionally every day. That idea feels increasingly rare in a culture built around financial urgency. But history repeatedly suggests the same uncomfortable truth. Wealth is often damaged more by emotional behavior than by markets themselves. The good news is that avoiding many of these mistakes does not require predicting the future. It does not require becoming a financial genius, and it does not require watching financial news all day long. Historically, many successful retirees followed remarkably simple principles. Stay diversified. Keep costs low, avoid emotional reactions during fear, and allow time to do what short-term emotions often interrupt. Simple does not mean easy, especially during uncertain periods. But over time, calm investors have often placed themselves in stronger financial positions than reactive ones. And maybe that is the real lesson hidden underneath decades of retirement history. Wealth is often lost quietly, but it can also be protected quietly through patience, simplicity, discipline, and the ability to remain emotionally steady while the financial world around you becomes emotionally unstable.